Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to boost a hurricane rubber. This is the blue sponge version, 40 degrees to 0.1 millimeters neo version. You can see on the sponge there's already a pre-applied base layer. The oil I'm using today is Haifu Seamoon. It's quite affordable, so most amateur players can go for it. It's also the most popular oil among amateurs. If you want even better performance, go for Haifu Special Yellow and Black Oil. However, those two are more expensive. First step of boosting, peel off the protective film on the rubber surface. Step 2. Normally you'd apply a layer of water-based glue, but because this is the Neo version, it already has a factory base layer, so I'm not going to redo the base layer. However, some people like to remove the factory base layer and do their own. Either way is fine. I'm not redoing it, I'm going straight to oil. Dip the brush in, then scrape it against the bottle neck. If there's excess, scrape it off. Honestly, there's no big secret to brushing. The only requirement is to brush evenly. No strict rules, just brush evenly. The first coat is pretty much done. After applying, the surface needs to look relatively even, and for the edges and corners, it doesn't really matter. Brushed or not is fine, because once glued to the blade, those parts will be trimmed off. Note, try to avoid letting the oil spill over the edge or get on the top sheet, because the top sheet also expands. If it's a brand new rubber and you get oil on the side or on the top sheet, it's not a big deal. But if it's already cut, then during gluing and oiling, you need to be careful. After brushing, let it dry. One more thing. Because the protective film is already off, you need to store the rubber in a cool, dry place. Away from humidity and high heat. Now, let's wait for it to dry. Now, this rubber after the first coat of oil has been drying for more than 2 hours. The rubber is starting to expand and curl. If you touch the surface with your finger, it's almost dry. So now we can apply the second coat. Because the rubber is already curling, you need to be extra careful when brushing. Take your time. Make sure the oil doesn't get on the top sheet. Okay, second coat is done. Next, just be patient. Now that 2 coats are on, the sponge will keep expanding and it will curl even more, so the waiting time will be a bit longer. Let it sit for about 12 hours and then check it. Alright, now, about 20 hours have passed. As you can see, the rubber is still very curled. Really curled up. The oil on the surface is completely dry, not sticky at all. Looking at the top sheet, the grain is very visible. Now it's ready to glue. You can glue it onto the blade. But because the rubber is so curled, it's not easy to brush water-based glue. So we need something cylindrical to lay it over. That way, when you pour water-based glue on top and brush, it's much easier. because this water-based glue will eventually go onto the blade. You don't need to make it perfectly even, just even enough. Make sure to cover the edges too, because the rubber is very curled. If any spot misses glue, it might unstick easily after gluing. First coat. Just brush evenly. First coat, brush lightly, then let the glue dry and apply a second coat. Also brush one coat of water-based glue on the blade, and then you can stick them together. That's my personal boosting routine. Actually, how many coats of water-based glue you apply at the end, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 5 coats, really depends on each person's power level and personal preference. Because if you apply thicker water-based glue, the overall elasticity increases and the racket feels more powerful. But for most amateur players, the weight also increases, so it won't feel as crisp or easy to drive through. It requires more strength from you. So, amateur players should decide based on their own situation how many coats of water-based glue to use. My personal habit is to finish with just 2 coats of water-based glue, and then glue. Now, let me share some boosting tips with you all. This comes from over 10 years of playing and my consistent gluing experience. First, how far should you boost? Does it mean that the rubber has to curl like a squid roll, with a really dramatic curve? Not necessarily. The point of boosting is to let the oil soak into the sponge and allow the sponge to expand fully. The more it expands, the more it damages the sponge. Sometimes, if you make it curl like a squid roll with an extreme curve, it hurts the sponge more because the expansion rate is very high. The rubber might get damaged more, and it might become too bouncy, which you may not like either. So moderation is key. A moderate curve, as long as the oil has penetrated the sponge and there's some expansion, that's enough. Second question, how often should you boost? How often to reboost? Based on my own example, if I play 3 to 4 times a week, then within a month, I will reboost at most once. If I don't boost, the feel becomes dull and hard. The overall feel is bad, so I choose to reboost. If someone plays only once or twice a week, then maybe the interval is longer, but definitely not more than 2 months. Because by then the rubber is too hard to play with. If you play more frequently, like provincial or national team players, maybe every 10 days to 2 weeks. If during competitions, they might boost every 2 or 3 days, because the performance is gone. They want better feelings. Third question, how to glue after you have boosted. This is also a common piece of experience, because sometimes after boosting, the rubber curls. When you glue it onto the forehand side, the edges might lift up a little, like it's not fully flat. But don't worry about it, you can just play with it directly. A little edge lifting is completely normal, as long as you apply water-based glue and stick the rubber to the blade. A tiny bit of edge lift is totally normal. After a while, maybe a week or 2, the rubber will settle down. See, mine was also slightly lifted at first, but after some time, the rubber sits flush. So, don't be obsessive compulsive and try to force it down completely. It's a natural phenomenon. If you use a tensor style rubber without boosting, it usually won't lift. This is very normal, so as long as it's glued on, you're good. That's it for today. Thanks, everyone.